Welcome back, brethren. I'm so happy to be able to be here with you yet again. Quick reminder, take it upon yourself to say a prayer that you could understand what's written in these scriptures better than perhaps you may have previously. Pray that the Lord will guide you in being able to understand these things and for you to apply them in your life. I promise you, He will do so if your desire has real intent. That being said, let's go right back to where we were. We just read through 54, and in the last video we found out that for the period of 4 years, over the period of 4 years, Joseph Smith returned to the hill of Gomorrah, and in doing so, each time he was instructed and taught and tutored essentially by the prophet of the Book of Mormon times, who compiled the record altogether at the end, and that would be Moroni. And Moroni trained him up. And I just want to re-emphasize something that was mentioned in verse 54 so you can understand what Moroni was teaching him. He said, I went at the end of each year, and at each time I found the same messenger there and received instruction and intelligence from him at each of our interviews, respecting what the Lord was going to do. So he was being taught at such a young age these powerful principles and doctrine of the gospel that frankly I don't believe anybody else in his situation could have been able to understand. The Lord was definitely with Joseph Smith. Now, let's go through and read 55, starting there. It says, as my father's worldly circumstances were very, very limited, we were under the necessity of laboring with our hands, hiring out by day's work and otherwise, as we could get opportunity. Sometimes we were at home and sometimes abroad, and by continuous labor were enabled to get a comfortable maintenance. Comfortable. In the year 1823, my father's family met with a great affliction by the death of my eldest brother Alvin. In the month of October 1825, I hired with an old gentleman by the name of Josiah Stoll, who lived in Chenango County, state of New York. He had heard something of a silver mine having been opened by the Spaniards in Harmony, Susquehanna County, state of Pennsylvania, and had, previous to my hiring to him, been digging in order, if possible, to discover the mine. After I went to live with him, he took me with the rest of his hands to dig for the silver mine, at which I continued to work for nearly a month, without success in our undertaking. And finally, I prevailed with the old gentleman to cease digging after it. Hence arose the very prevalent story of my having been a money digger, which wasn't true. It's actually the man that he worked for. You know, when you're looking for work and you're desperate to provide for your family, what do people do? They go to whatever means possible to provide for their family. It's just the way things are. You would accept work if there's decent pay in it. In verse 57, it continues saying, during this time that I was thus employed, I was put to board with Mr. Isaac Hale of that place. It was there I first saw my wife, his daughter, Emma Hale. On the 18th of January, 1827, we were married, while I was yet employed in the service of Mr. Stoll. Owing to my continuing to assert that I had seen a revelation or vision, persecution still followed me. And my wife's father's family were very much opposed to our being married. I was therefore under the necessity of taking her elsewhere. So we went and were married at the house of Squire Tarbill in South Bainbridge, Chenango County, New York. Immediately after my marriage, I left Mr. Stoll's and went to my fathers and farmed with him that season. It's no surprise that opposition came about through all kinds of people. And this is the story of the Latter-day Saints having to go one place to another place, to another place, to another place, to another place, because the devil was working so hard to stop this work from coming forward. The greatest part about it is, he can't. At verse 59 it says, "At length the time arrived for obtaining the plates, the Urim and Thummim, and the breastplate. And on the 22nd day of September, 1827, having gone as usual at the end of another year to the place where they were deposited, the same heavenly messenger delivered them up to me with this charge, that I should be responsible for them, that if I should let them go carelessly, or through any neglect of mine, I should be cut off. But that if I would use all my endeavors to preserve them until he, the messenger," quote Moroni, "should call for them, they should be protected." This is a pretty interesting verse that comes up next. Let's listen to what happens in verse 60. "I soon found the reason why I had received such strict charges to keep them safe, and why it was that the messenger had said that when I had done what was required at my hand, he would call for them. For no sooner was it known that I had them, than the most strenuous exertions were used to get them from me. Every stratagem that could be invented was resorted to for that purpose. The persecution became more bitter and severe than before, and multitudes were on the alert continually to get them from me, if possible. But by the wisdom of God, they remained safe in my hands, until I had accomplished by them what was required at my hand. When, according to arrangements, the messenger called for them, I delivered them up to him, and he has them in this charge until this day, being the 2nd day of May, 1838. The excitement, however, still continued, and rumor, with her 1,000 tongues, was all the time employed in circulating falsehoods about my father's family and about myself. If I were to relate 1,000th part of them, it would fill up volumes. The persecution, however, became so intolerable that I was under the necessity of leaving Manchester and going with my wife to Susquehanna County in the state of Pennsylvania. While preparing to start, being very poor, and the persecution so heavy upon us that there was no probability that we would ever be otherwise. In the midst of our afflictions, we found a friend and a gentleman by the name of Martin Harris, who came to us and gave me $50 to assist us to assist us on our journey. Mr. Harris was a resident of Palmyra Township, Wayne County, in the state of New York, and farmer of respectability. Concerning this Martin Harris, he is the one man responsible for the loss of the first 116 pages of the manuscript, or otherwise known as the Book of Lehi. And evil and designing men had gotten their hands on these things because he broke the covenant with the Lord that he was only supposed to show them to a certain few people. But because he showed them to other people, they were lost. Both Martin Harris and Joseph Smith were severely rebuked and chastised for their failure to listen to him the first time. So I hope that gives a little bit more insight on Martin Harris. But that being said, we'll close this video out. Please take a moment to rate and comment, and be right back with us.